Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast, Get in the Mode, where we interview digital leaders who transform businesses through technology and apps. I am your host, David Jitendranath, the CEO at ModeStack. At ModeStack, we create apps that hit the mark in just 30 days. You can learn more about us at themodestack.com. Our guest today is Dan Ritch. He is the CIO at Northmark. Northmark is a leading commercial mortgage brokerage. It's primarily focused on the multifamily business, more on the commercial side. He's joined them to lead digital transformation efforts. He has held leadership positions at places like Honeywell, previously vice president there. We are so happy to have him here talk about digital transformation, what they're doing at Northmark, and share some of his experiences. Dan, welcome to the show.
Hey, David, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So Dan, let's start with a little bit about your background. Tell us what sort of leadership roles you've had in the past and perhaps now at Northmark.
Yeah, thanks for asking. My formative years started with Perot Systems. So I worked for Mr. Perot for the first 5 or 6 years of my career and then spent time at IBM Global Services. Big stint during the time in which IBM purchased PwC Consulting. And then as they say, jumped to the dark side and became a leader within IT within organizations and spent time at Delco Ramy, Magna, Honeywell, and now found my way, thankfully, over to Northmark to help them on their digital transformation journey.
That's great. So with that sort of an impressive background, you've oftentimes heard the buzzword digital transformation thrown around. Some companies even consider Zoom subscription a digital transformation. What does that term mean to you?
Well, I think as the information technology guy, person, that I want to make sure that the digital transformation is all about making life easier for our internal team and most importantly, our customers. We're really focused on figuring out ways to interact better, to help us find talent in the industry, and overall help us become a faster organization. There's so much that we can win in this space by just being a little bit faster. And obviously all the other things that are table stakes, secure, good data, make sure it works well. That's what we're going to do. But really, it's all that relationship with our internal team and our customer to make their experience a lot faster, easier, and I think more delightful as we build out our new tech platforms.
Yep. Customer experience, customer delight. No longer customer satisfaction. You got to go beyond that, right? Personalizing that experience and really building those digital capabilities seem to hit the mark these days.
Fully agree.
Tell us a little bit about, what made Northmark sort of mortgage brokerage firms are seen more as laggards for technology. What made them invest in digital transformation?
Well, I think overall, we've had an incredible amount of change in our leadership platform. Through succession planning, we've put in a new CEO, a new COO, and now a brand new CIO. This role is brand new to the organization. I think you're right. Maybe we were a little behind in putting things together, but the vision from our leaders was incredible during my interview process about what they wanted to do. And they basically had goodness all around that they talked about. They just didn't know how to weave it together and then really try to take it forward in a way that change fatigue can happen pretty fast if you just throw everything at once. So we've really had to put a careful approach in how we want to do it. And I was very intrigued with my boss, Travis Kruger's vision about where we want to go. I was intrigued we've got a lot of great programs of bringing young talent on board, whether it's an associate producers program or looking at, revitalizing the IT team. It was all about do things different, do it new, how can we change? And that attitude is, really, catchy. And so I thought that was a great opportunity. And when I got here, it's proven to be so. There's quite a bit of low-hanging fruit and more importantly, huge challenges in our industry, right? how do you get customers to change their mindset of how they do business with you? It's a very much a relationship type business, and you can't, trounce upon that relationship that people have had of going to dinners and going on golf courses and hammering out deals. And now you want to digitize everything. It's a fine line between throwing that technology there. So the challenge was awesome for me. I've had some experience in the building world at Honeywell, so I got my feet wet on what that all meant about, putting buildings together and harnessing data. And those experiences fit really well with where we wanted to go, and it was a nice match. And it kept me in Minneapolis, which I've been here 5 years, and despite the freezing cold, my family loves it. It's a beautiful place, and we want to, grow roots here. So that kept me in Minneapolis.
You must love the cold there then.
Yeah, it's good for you.
Yeah. It ages you slower, I heard. So,
well, that'll help. I'm really 85. I look okay,
So Dan, change in leadership. I'm a big believer and fan of Didier Bonnet's book Leading Digital, and he talks in that book about how all these digital transformation efforts start from the leadership, from the top. It's also people, right? So that you talked about relationships and things like that. It's still, that's where it begins. So I think you just confirmed that, what those theories and concepts in that book. Now let me ask you, once you guys realized that this is a necessity and this is a way for you guys to grow and do your business, what were initial steps? Perhaps you can speak from Travis's mind. What sparked that need, and then what was the steps he took?
Yeah, I think number one that sparked the need is that, we bring aboard talent in key locations across the United States, and they have wonderful relationships with their clients, and they needed to come under an umbrella of a process, a technology, and a culture that was really going to allow them to accelerate their business. Northmark is known for its values, its business ethics, which is wonderful, right? You want to go to a place that's like that, but we're not really known for our technology. And I think one of the things Travis has indicated is that, we want to bring aboard talent, and to do so, people want to come somewhere where it's easy to do their job. And so we had to think about, number one, internally, how do we do our job more effectively? And how do we do that through process and tools and people? And then I think secondarily, although important, but secondarily is now we're going to start, once we build our foundation, clean our own house, to move outward and take a look at what we do for our customer. So Travis really focused on the areas, and then working with him and our CEO, with Jeff Whitell, I basically said, what are Northmark's North Stars? I mean, what am I anchoring this to drive a vision? And that's where we came out with growth, talent, and innovation. So everything that we do, our goals and objectives, the discussion points that just came off my IT leadership meeting, what are we doing in those areas? How are we going to grow the business? How are we going to bring aboard the talent that we need? And how are we going to bring about an innovative culture? And that's not just, listening to the tech guys and gals. It's how do we get words from the customer? How do we get words internally? So we've set up a bit of a framework to do that. And that, making sure we have the right people on board was the first step. And then that's how Travis wanted us to start. And I've been here 10 months, so we're just getting going. But, that's where we got going. I think we've got a good foundation and got a couple key things that we've already completed this year. So we're heading in the right direction.
That's very exciting. So with those three key tenets, or North Stars, as you call it, I love it. Growth, talent, and innovation. What are some key initiatives you've kickstarted in each of those areas? Tell us a little bit about that. Perhaps some wins in each of those areas.
Yeah, for sure. I think when you talk about growth, talent, innovation, we kick over to the innovation side, and we looked at our loan operations platform. So happy to report that while this project started a little before my time here, we've successfully upgraded our loan operations platform. So that's going to enable us to have our back office team work in the same tool set, speak the same language, look at the same data, and get to our customers faster to complete a loan. The second thing we looked at was Salesforce. And Salesforce can be many things to many people, For us, it was around pipeline management. And now when we came on board with talent, we wanted to take a look at the customer relationship management. How do we build a platform that will enable our brokers and producers to have everything they need? Our long-term vision is to try to drive this Northmark advisory services, a common place where our producers and brokers can gather information. So we started on that journey of opening up that platform, getting all our contacts aligned properly, building the right marketing automation, which we've just started, partnering with a company called Future, opening up deal visibility and sharing information. Northmark has recently grown from, looking at our debt and equity team to bringing in investment sales. So when those teams can hunt together, go after the customer collectively, 360 view, that was another thing of getting Salesforce turned around. And last but not least, we've been inserting the process of robotic process automation.
Wow.
So we're looking at our loan platform, adding in bots where humans used to be to make the process faster. And then looking at that loan statement, can I take a process today that takes us 16 to 20 days? Can I get that down to 6 to 10 minutes? And so that frees up the time of the loan operations team to help that relationship and gather more information from our customer. And the customer, I hope they're having a time where they're saying, wow, I really like doing business with Northmark because, you know what, I know they're going to do the job right. They're a great, wonderfully ethically oriented company. And now their technology is, top notch.
Right.
So those are the key areas around growth, talent, innovation. I think it all, encompasses around Travis and Jeff want to bring aboard more brokers, more investment sales folks. And so in cases like this, when we have an opportunity to talk in the industry about the things we're doing to make it better, if you're someone that's not at Northmark today, I want you in early 2021, I want people to say, I want to go to Northmark because they have the cool tools that work effectively, that drive my business, and then enable me to grow the business more and more.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about innovation. So, in innovation, as you know, there are two types: sustainable innovation and disruptive innovation. Sustainable is more for staying competitive, adopting new tech, so you can stay relevant, increase customer lifetime value, all of that, right? And disruptive being more the one about being business transformation, business model changes. Sounds like if I'm understanding you correctly, you're more on the sustainable innovation side. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would say, Dave, that makes sense for the position we're in the journey,
Yeah.
right? You've got to really organize your house. I think you have to, build the box in order to break through it. And so we're building around platforms and stabilizing the platforms. And now we're taking a couple more steps forward in an innovation council, some key other collections of ideas around where we want to improve things. So like you said, I probably won't say it as nicely as you, but we've got a group of folks that are building out the platforms and helping make those more stabilized. And now we've got another group of folks that we want to try to break the box.
Got it.
So our innovation council meets 4 times a year. And, we throw a topic out there for a month. We gnaw on it for a while, and we come back and we kick the ideas around. And we try to go deep into the business to bring the information out.
Got it. So on the innovation track, what have been some strategies on gathering these ideas and creating a roadmap? Can you talk to us about that?
You bet. I think on the sustainable model, number one, we've built, we call it the champion model. So inside Salesforce, inside our loan operations platform, which is from PNC Midland called Enterprise, we built champions in the business. So about 10 to 12 people that represent different walks in the business that are brought together on a weekly basis to help us talk about where we're going on the product. Our product owners, which we just put in place, are now driving those conversations. And they're doing 2 things. One part of the week, they're talking about the day-to-day things they need to do to drive the product backlog. And the other side, they're talking about new innovative ideas that they could try to grow within the product. The second side that we try to look at is our innovation council. So that's another handful of users from around the business that, again, we throw ideas at, we chew on that for a month or so, and we come back into the business and talk about where we want to go. We try to foster, that thinking by just throwing topics out there and saying, hey, how would you like to see your business change? What ideas? There's not a dumb idea. what can you do to make your life different? And it doesn't have to be tech, right? It could
Right.
be simply a process change. It could be, hey, why aren't we working with this person? They're fantastic and they got a new idea. So I'm getting to learn, what the business would like to do. The difference in the two is on this side, we're talking about areas where we can sustain and grow and probably less risk. On the Innovation Council, even the conversation we had 2 weeks ago with the team was, this is the group that wants to try to break stuff, right? This is the group that it's okay if we fail. And
Right.
if we're not failing on something that we put in here, then we're not doing it right. And that was like, whoa, what do you mean? So give me an idea that's just a wild, crazy idea that you think might happen. And how do we harness that? You think about buildings, frictionless inspections. Customers don't want people coming into their building anymore. So that's the topic of the day. How do we go after that? Do we have people take pictures inside the building? Do we use a drone? Do we use third-party data from building management systems? Can we bring that all together and give a collective experience? So we're trying to think of ways that, hey, that's, the comment of that's not in our space, that's okay. It's not in our space, but should it be? And so we're trying to use that council to help us bring out those ideas.
Yeah, and I think you've touched a little bit upon the challenges you faced. Perhaps if you were to kind of speak to a counterpart about the challenges on, you talked a little bit about the sustainable innovation and the disruptive side. What are some key challenges you're facing, and what's your strategy to address those challenges?
I think it's probably twofold. I mean, the first challenge is you've got a team that had limited technology investment,
Mm.
and therefore we need to have the platforms to play around in. And when you switch over to an agile environment,
Yeah.
the discussion isn't just about the internal team learning how that works. It's
Right.
how do you sell the business on a minimal viable product? When in the past they were like, no, 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 I want to know exactly when it's going to be done. I want to know exactly how it's going to look. So you've got to walk them through the journey. And so we do that on the sustainable side. We're putting those in place so people get used to, okay, I can see you building this out with incremental steps versus waiting for the long run. And then it helps the other side to know where the change items are.
Right.
The other thing I think is important in change and is helping us. Number one, we had to build our credibility. So we've delivered on products that we said we were going to do in
Right.
the time frame that we said we were going to do it. The second thing is communication. We communicate, and I want to over communicate what we're doing. We've set up email channels inside Salesforce and Enterprise that constantly keep them up to date. What's happening? What's going on? The other thing we do is when we do releases, we actually identify whomever gave us the idea in the release notes. So it's the internal credit, like, hey, David gave us an idea on what we're going to do to improve the loan operations platform, and they released it. So you take a little pride, and you feel like it's not just dumping it over the wall to IT, and then somehow it shows up one day. It's actually, this was submitted on this date. It was delivered on this date. Thanks, Dave, for the suggestion. So they're kind of getting people involved in technology. So they're becoming IT folks without knowing it, I guess. So it helps us out.
That's a great way to recognize ideas and bring them to light, right? And kind of
Yep,
give credit where it's due. Um,
for sure.
so in your company, who are some key stakeholders? I think you've kind of mentioned some leaders. Is there a one-to-one mapping for these leaders on those, on the growth, talent, and innovation? How do you guys share these accountability and responsibility?
Well, I think in a couple levels on the champion model, people are identified and it's a 3 to 6 month journey. You get to be part of the team, you provide your insight, and then you pass the torch on to somebody else. So we want to constantly add more people into that. Same thing on the Innovation Council. So the champions change out about every other quarter. The Innovation Council stays with us for the full year and tries to drive that information. The leadership team at the top, they get the messaging from me and Travis to give an update of where we're going. And then we have multiple different meetings where IT is now always on the agenda. whether that's a managing director meeting, whether that's an associate producer update, whether that's we're talking about top talent on the HR side. We've always carved out a little bit of technology time where at first it was me just saying, hey, here's what we're doing, a little bit of goodness, and then we spread it out. So there's not a set group of people that are in the innovation side. What I hope that after a year's time, which a couple months, I'll be my full year in place, that we will have touched probably, we're only 550 people in the business. Between our councils and what we're working on, we probably will have touched about 100 of those in the first year. And then next year we'll switch them all out. So, within a 2-year journey, half the organization will be involved in these new ways of thinking, and we'll see what that's going to spark and what changes we possibly could bring about.
Got it. So in the innovation model, you probably, now that you've kind of put this type of a process in place, I'm sure you're receiving a lot of ideas, solutions. Are there any frameworks or tools you guys use to prioritize these sort of, they're not competing ideas per se, but everybody is saying this is urgent, the urgency, like how do you prioritize? Are there frameworks, tools you use for that?
We briefly interrupt this interview for an ad from our sponsor, ModeStack. Deploying mobile apps is a great way to show quick results on your digital initiatives. Leaders often face the question, does my business need an app? Where would it produce key benefits? Not all businesses need an app. ModeStack has a tool that can assess the need for an app and identify the key benefit area for your business. It takes less than 10 minutes for the assessment. When you complete the assessment, you get a detailed report on whether an app initiative is a fit for you and what area it would benefit you the most. Check out the tool at 30dayapps.com. That is 30dayapps.com. Now back to the show.
I would not say that I have any particular framework or tool set that I pulled off the shelf. How it's come about for us is that during the first Innovation Council, we kind of threw out the idea of RPA and kicked that idea around. People came back and gave us thoughts about where we wanted to go. And of the 15 or so people that are in the council, probably at least 11 or so of them had ideas about RPA. So we took the notes, framed it back to the business and said, okay, for the next round, we're going to go after RPA. That may take some time. So that's been our first step. The second time that we've gone through it, the council, which was a few weeks ago, was more around the booking process. So we've just now started more on the RPA side and getting off the ground by bringing in a product owner, hiring business analysts, and getting that rolling. So we probably still have more work to do, and then we'll look at the booking process on the next side. So it's really the voice of the council that leads us where we want to go. And I probably didn't do a real good job, David, of doing a good exercise to prioritize. It more was a grouping, like, okay, the majority of us said this is where we want to go. Let's look back at you and say, y'all good with this? Everybody gave the thumbs up, and then we started moving it forward.
Yeah, and I think perhaps this question is going to throw some light on, your thought process, right? In our show, we try to focus on, we have all these innovation initiatives. What are measurable outcomes, right? Results are what matters. You can go on this long and, faster and nicer journey of, putting RPA in place and things like that. But, what are some guidelines you've come up with perhaps for the team for measurable outcomes and results?
Yeah, for me, if we go back to growth, talent, innovation, and come back down to maybe KPIs that we want to look at from ideas we throw out there. Number one, again, some of these ideas are going to crash and burn, right? And they're not going to be the ones we want to run with. But if we move toward more of an RPA side, to me, the number one thing we're going to measure is cycle time. We're going to take a look at the time frame in which we're entering loan information and the time we can have that loan secured for the customer. That's one. The second thing is going to be taking a look at, generating revenue inside the sales team. Maybe it's front end sales, maybe it's back end driving revenue. We want to try to see where we're at. And then last but not least, to me, the one that I say, and I just said this on my leadership meeting, in talent, I want to measure how we're bringing aboard the talent. I never want to hear that somebody declined us because of the technology side. So if we gather talent on the producer side and they enter into that cycle of hiring, I want to see that number go up. Now, I don't think we're measuring that effectively just yet, but so it's a little bit of, are we seeing people come on board? Are we hearing word of mouth? But I want to start to measure that time frame of somebody that enters into the hiring cycle, that they're a prime time candidate. They've gotten to the second round of interviewing, and it's our decision to hire them. I want to know which one said yes or no, because to me, that's a true testament of, are we building the culture that people want to come to?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have, am I adding to that on the technology flavor?
Right.
Because I know that we're not going to drop down on the ethics and the values. That's table stakes where we want to be. But I want to see, are people coming on board because the tech is pulling them in? And that would be a neat thing to measure to see where we're at.
Yeah. Slightly changing gears here. Let's talk a little bit about change management, moving from innovation. Change with, obviously with digital transformation, having a solid change management plan is an absolute must. Otherwise you have customers who get frustrated and see technology as a barrier or a pain to deal with rather than feel enabled, right? And from your perspective, what are some steps that your team has, created for change management?
So first and foremost, we talked about the ability for us to communicate in a business fashion what we're trying to do to accomplish the goals of the business. And I was fortunate enough to convince the business of helping us bring aboard someone to lead our change management side of things. So we've partnered with an outside firm, SenseCorp. We brought aboard someone to drive change management. And Deborah is part of my IT leadership team, and she's helping us with our communication plans. We have built a couple of ways to help do that. Number one, the normal way, we surveyed the team up front about, what do you think about change? What type of technologies are working for you? What's not? How is IT communicating with you? And benchmark where we were. Our next survey is November 11th, so I'm curious to see where I stand. But we then have created communication channels inside each of the platforms we're launching. So simplistic email that goes out with a regular cadence about, this is happening, this is the launch date, this is what's going on. And then I built this, it's kind of goofy, but I call it digital bites, right? BUITES. And so I create this simple pictograph that goes out every 3 months that is a real simple way of what technology is doing for you. So we built a loan operations platform, which the producers really didn't have anything, they don't deal with it. But we built a digital bite to let the producers know about how this product, hey, did you know we're investing in the back end and this is going to make it more successful in how we generate more loans. So here's the information. And then vice versa, Salesforce information we send to the back of the house to let them know that, hey, the team's now putting information in the Salesforce, which is going to drive more opportunities, which you should see an uptick in the loan side. So we're doing all of those. The next one we're going to put out is going to be around our internal communications, which is around SharePoint and Teams and Microsoft Office changes and updates. So that's a more collaborative area we want to improve upon. But with the digital bites have helped us. And believe it or not, what's really, if there's any silver lining in COVID and the size of the organization, when COVID struck, I called every single managing director and producer in the business to first and foremost make sure they're okay, and second, how's our technology helping you stay more productive? Are you connected? Is it working? Remember, we are a work from office exclusively business, so we had to pivot to that. So I think the change management person, Deborah, has given me a better way to communicate. She helps me sound a lot smarter than I am in the communications I send. And then we regularly update the platforms. We cross-pollinate the information through the digital bites. And then our president has allowed me twice a year that I give, an address to the business about what's going on with tech. And so we're always somewhere in the mind, either the forefront or the back of what we're doing, and then we're talking about what we're doing, the council, talking about where we're at. So I think that change communication-wise has helped. The champions that we talked about have also been helpful. It's the voice of customer inside the business to help us go where we're going. And then last but not least, I think it's part of change management. We spent a lot of time process mapping the internal side, And what we're getting ready to launch for 2021 is a session of journey maps, voice of customer reviews, observational voice of customer. We're picking 20 clients out there. We're going to go talk to a one-on-one, and that should be driving now our strategy, our communications, our change management. Where first we had to get your house in order, and now we're going outside.
Great. How integral, you talked about cross-platform integration and publishing and bringing about that change. How integral is a DevOps practice in a team like yours? Are you guys currently working on anything or wanting to start an initiative on the DevOps side ASAP?
Yes, we are. So again, early days for us. We were not in that DevOps mindset at all. And it took us a little time to get our head around it. But I guess I'll try to answer it quickly that we've just recently brought aboard a DevOps engineer to kind of sit in the middle there. We've spent time looking at our SDLC and making sure that all our environments are now up to snuff. Particularly when we launched our loan operations platform, we had to ensure that everybody had the right, development model, QA, integration review, and then into production. Now that DevOps engineer is going to sit across those to ensure that those environments are staying lock solid and in the right perspective. We've added in change management and problem management into the reviews of our entire IT team. It's not just to update the business, when there's a catastrophe, but we're continuously updating them on what's going on. If there's a blurb in the system, we let them know how we're going to fix it. So we gain the credibility that we've got their back and we're covering it. And now we're looking at building out the agile process, training ourselves internally, as well as training the business on how things are going to change. What does a minimal viable product really mean going from where we were before? So we had to start from scratch. We had to make sure our environments were clean. We've got the right engineer in place now. And I believe that we are, have a good foundation. More to do, David, more to do.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
A good foundation with people, and we're getting there.
I think it's a challenge, right, to communicate the ROI on DevOps initiatives, especially because it's often seen as not directly having any value on customer growth or customer experience. So, leadership sees it as, oh, it's another fancy project that you want to undertake. And, have you, perhaps at Northmark or in the past, how do you effectively communicate the benefit of, and the ROI on a DevOps effort or initiative?
Yeah, certainly tough to measure. I think we had an opportunity twofold in our platforms. Our loan operations platform was, a little long in the tooth on delivery, and they were probably about 3 years into the model. And, we've turned that around and delivered that in 10 months. So if I parlay that over to Salesforce, in order for us to improve Salesforce, we wanted to improve the cycle time in which we were releasing the goodness. So I talked a lot about cycle time, and if I can deliver things faster. So if I think about it from the beginning, if I can clearly articulate where we're going with the North Stars, and I can build a roadmap about what we're going to do to get there, and then I can give you rough estimates on how long before I can start to show you when that product comes to life, and we actually hit those dates, it shows that, the investment you're going to make, it's a little bit of faith for me being the new guy. Like, hey, I can take out these 2 developers that bring in DevOps model and help us, increase our delivery time. So, we had to give a little give and take, but we have, I think that establishing credibility and early wins in the beginning of any tenure is important. Building the communication model. And now as I head into for next year, looking at 2021, 2022, where do we want to go? If we can get those journey maps from the customers brought in, and I can say, well, internally, we looked at DevOps helped us have the cycle time improve here. If this is where our customers want to go and I can get those done quickly, it lends itself to, okay, do what you say, get it done. And now we have to pivot back and start to look at improvements in our own KPIs in IT, right? What we said we're going to do it, how do we measure ourselves? So that's what's coming. My team has to be aware that's coming for early next year.
That's awesome. Now, kind of a general question that you can perhaps some advice for our audience. Um, companies sometimes face a dilemma on whether to hire in-house or partners, work with partners. What are some guidelines you followed on making a determination between hiring talent in-house versus working with partners?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was really lucky when I came on board that Travis had already brought aboard a firm to help us, look at the strategy, and that's with SenseCorp. So I've kind of played it this way. For our application needs and transitioning ourselves to the agile world, I used bridge resources from SenseCorp to fill in the gaps that I didn't have to allow me to go out and hire where I needed those. So we rebuilt the Salesforce team, right? We leveraged great talent from SenseCorp that helped us establish the roadmap, build up the backlog. And then I went out and got our own product owner, and now we're replacing their developers, their system admin, their QA with our own. So that was one step. On the support desk, we looked at contract to hire, right? Let's give them a try before we buy. And knowing that, the support desk is a bit of a transient role, people come in and go off to find something new. We had to first understand what our support model was, bring people in, try them out, get the right talent, because that's all about customer service. That's a big, make sure that you have the right people that are helping the customers along. And now when we take a look at what we want to do for our support models, we're looking at the talent we are changing out. They need to have that agile background. They need to have the collaboration where they want to go. And we talked this morning with my team about what type of people we want: humble, hungry, and smart, right? So we look at those acronyms and try to drive ourselves and make sure we're doing the right things. So it's a mixed model there, David. Buy and try, bridge resources. And then ultimately, I want to use my SenseCorp folks to help me on those strategy areas, right, push us 2 years ahead, bring in the talent that's been there and done that, and hire my team to help us get to where we need to be. I never expect, 500 people, I have 24 people on my IT team. I'm never going to grow to, 300. So I'm going to use those resources to help me drive those strategic areas, and then hire where I can, but always use that outside force to help me.
Got it. What a great approach. Tell us a little bit about what you like doing in your free time, like in, being in such a cold place.
Well, you know what? I've been blessed with twins. So I have 8-year-old twins, and I try to stay active with them as much as possible. And Northmark's incredibly family oriented. And so for the first time in my career, 25 or 6 years of working, I'm actually now coaching. Coaching my son's basketball and flag football leagues. I can't do what my daughter does. She does gymnastics and dance, so I'm an observer there. But I get to coach and spend a lot of time with them. My kids are big in piano. I play guitar, so we do that in the cold winter days when we're freezing inside.
Guitar sounds fun. What genre of music do you like to play?
I like rock, like a strumming rock, like Alan Camp and
or more
acoustic.
Okay.
No, acoustic.
What are some events that you usually like going to? Obviously, before COVID hit, like, do you like conferences, anything that you kind of follow?
I enjoy going to conferences. What I'm trying to build my repertoire is actually trying to speak at those conferences and share the information. I think, as you can see from my face, I've reached a point in my career where I think I could share some things that I learned, hopefully help along the way.
These insights that you spoke about is huge.
But I enjoy, there's a lot of Minneapolis CIO, the Twin City CIO group. I'm actually a board member there, where, we bring people in to speak. And if you're ever interested in speaking at those events, let me know. I can get you.
Yeah, one of the things that we do here at ModeStack is a couple of things. One is, and that's kind of why I touched upon that, is more on the innovation side. We do something called design sprints. I don't know if you've heard about that, Time. It's more like, how to prioritize, build a roadmap. Like you talked about RPA and things like that. What are some initiatives within RPA that you want to kickstart? What are some processes you want to sort of like build a MVP model, right? It's more based on lean thinking. It passed muster at Google Ventures. That's kind of how it was birthed. Actually, a guy from Google Ventures went out and started his own. He wrote this book called Design Sprint. So if you're ever,
Okay.
yeah, you should. So that's kind of what we do. And the other part to us is, the DevOps side of things. We try to show ROI and how to push a button, push that change across platforms, and show that value, right? Because then people see, and it's kind of a little bit one-time setup. It doesn't have, I mean, the one-time setup is kind of orchestrating, that is the big thing. And then once you set that up, internal folks can take care of it. So that's my company's focus. So if there's an opportunity to speak about those type of topics, I'm happy to visit and speak about it.
Yeah, it's a group of probably now 30, 35 CIOs in the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
We established this group probably 3 years ago now,
Yeah.
and you get a nice diverse set of folks that you can share information with, and they're usually the folks when I have a problem with, hey, I can't find a resource, or what did you guys install for this? I can give them a quick call. But I will look on our speaking agenda and I'll
Sure.
take a look
Yeah.
at your site and see if, hey, you guys interested? It's all virtual now, obviously.
Of
No one's
course.
coming
Yeah.
to Minneapolis,
Right.
but and no
I
one
mean,
wants to come during.
even like a panel discussion could be a good one. Like I'm happy to put together, a couple of other folks from Denver. Dan, I'm sure we can talk about digital transformation stories for hours. It has been an absolute pleasure learning about Northmark and how you measure success on your DT initiatives. Very thankful for your time and appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your perspective on digital transformation.
Well, thank you, Dave. It's a pleasure. It's very, very good to meet you. And I think what you're doing is fantastic to help share the information across other groups. I'm looking forward to hearing others speak and learn from them. So thanks again for the opportunity.
Of course.